I created a Old Testament theme card game, but I wasn't really happy with it because of the limitations I had to force on the design to accommodate the design rules. So I decided not to publish it, but I already made a bunch of artwork for it. So I've been thinking of what I can do to recycle those artwork, and hit upon the idea of creating a majors only tarot deck. So I'm gonna try to reformat all of my designs, and I don't know how that's gonna go, but we're gonna find out. It's more of a graphic design project to begin with. Yeah, I was really trying to explore what I can do to make a very kind of like a modern street art-ish kind of design, and taking advantage of foil technology. You know, I want to make all of my cards are going to be foil, and the design is really meant to take advantage of that. Alright, so I'm just going to show you an example of one of the designs. So this here is Cain, of Cain and Abel fame. So as you can see, I have a lot of the foil. So when it comes to foil, anything you make white or close to white is gonna have more foil. Anything darker is not. So Cain here is just gonna pop out on the actual card, and the text as well, right? Which I'm just quoting the Genesis over here. And you have Abel being killed. And in terms of the elements used, it's really just collage, really like heavily edited collage. But here we can go through the layers one by one. Really get down to it. It's just adding stuff and layering stuff on top of each other to create the design. All of them are kind of like that. I'll say like what's really different about the approach I took was the inclusion of typography and the inclusion of the mix of elements. Anyway, let us continue. This is the original design of the cards. You have, you know, all the rules text on them, but it's not in my opinion, it wasn't a game that could have reached its full potential due to the limitations I had to force on it. Which means that, okay, the rules of the card game contest is that you can only use 54 cards exactly, just like a regular poker deck basically, and you cannot have any other elements. You can no dice, you can have pencils, you cannot have tokens. You know, that really cramped my style. It's a tremendous limitation to what can be done. So this is why I'm recycling these artwork for a tarot deck instead. Yep, here's more example, the black and white version, so people can do print and play. Leviathan, how cool is that? From the Covenant, World of Jericho, you know, a typography, just a really off the walls, unconventional style. That was deliberate, right? I wanted to do that. Okay, let's get to it. All I'm doing, I'm going to use InDesign to create the final version of the cards I need. So this is formatted to be the tarot card ratio. Just to not have it be blurry, I'm just going to use overprint preview so you can see what it actually looks like. All I'm trying to do is just to make sure that the most important parts, which is really just the typography and the main graphical elements, are not cut off. Significant amount is gone due to the ratio of the cards, and you know, that's something we'll have to live with. If I come across a card whose design is impossible to fit onto this particular tarot card ratio, I might just have to like not include it, and maybe I'll make something new to fit that arcana, or I will have to make a poker deck size tarot, which is a bit unusual, but people do that. Make sure all the important parts are away from the edges, as the edges could be cut off. Usually you need a bleed for that, but I'm not really concerned about that. Okay, after much consideration, I think I've got a good idea of what kind of thing each of these should be. I actually had a list. Ark of the Covenant is the Emperor. Makes sense. I'm gonna do something a bit unusual. The company I'm using to print these cards, GameCrafter, their tarot cards come in sets of 18. Which means to have 22 cards, I'll have to print 36 cards and 14 of them will be blank. Now I do have 5 designs I haven't used, so I'm going to include them, but we've already reached the maximum amount of major arcanas there is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my own new arcanas just for this deck. Now some people do that, and I think that's pretty cool. This one, number 22 in my new arcanas, my own little made up arcanas, that shall be John and Jambres. These are the two magicians that Moses battled. If you guys watch The Prince of Egypt, you would know who I'm talking about. And I'm just gonna call them twins. The twins. You know, that's thematically appropriate. So I'm just changing the text here. Originally I was quoting Paradise Lost, but I have a better understanding of the whole history of, well, the whole theological history of how Satan as a figure developed. So yes, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. So that refers to King Nebuchadnezzar. It doesn't really refer to Lucifer, which is not an entity that actually exists in the Bible. It's kind of like, you know, people read it, they're like, oh yeah, Morning Star, Lucifer, and then they find it as like an actual figure, and then conflate that with the concept of Satan. And Satan originally just referred to the divine accuser in God's heavenly court. So basically the attorney general of God, if you will. Only really became like a bad guy in Christian mythology way later on. It really depends on your personal beliefs, right? So I've decided for the extra arcana to not make them part of the tarot, because I think the tarot system is pretty complete. Yeah, I don't want to add extra major arcanas if it doesn't make sense. So instead, the extras will just be oracles. I think that's for the best. Oracles are more freeform. There's no real set form to what they have to be or number of them. So in this instance, it will be something that people can add to the deck or remove depending on what they want. So for Jeans and Jambres, they represent challenge and hindrance. For the bride, or the pillars of cloud and fire, they will represent faithfulness, but also an obsession. There we go. You're wondering at my interpretation of these, I'm drawing from my theological and mythological knowledge here. So John Jambres are the magicians that challenge Moses on behalf of Pharaoh, but depending on a lot of extra biblical sources, they're given names and expanded roles. And in Islam, so John and Jambres are actually redeemed themselves and converted to Moses' religion and left with them. Or actually, I think they were killed by Pharaoh for converting. Anyway, or oh, you know what? Oh, man, I'm forgetting. Maybe, or I think they were killed with Korah's rebellion when they worshipped the golden calf. So that's, if that's true, you know, that's kind of an unfortunate end for these fellows. Yeah. And anyway, the bride represents the Shekinah, which is the divine feminine aspect of God, the bride of Israel, if you will. It manifests as pillars of cloud and fire at night, fire at night, and just cloud in daytime to guide the Israelites during the Exodus, at least according to Exodus. So the characteristic of the Shekinah is that she's always faithful to the people, even if God is displeased with them. But you know, the downside is that faithfulness, or you could be like obsessed. You know, in anime speak, yandere, right? Moloch, the demon who people sacrifice their children to, allegedly. But there's multiple interpretations for what Moloch is. According to some people, Moloch is actually a form of sacrifice. All kinds of interpretation here, but he's unlikely to be like an actual deity or demon. Like that kind of like conception happened way later on, when the concept of Moloch is like deify and form a mythological figure in its own right. Kind of like Lucifer. Lucifer is literally just Venus, and it's used to refer to people like King Nebuchadnezzar, for example. Hardened hearts. Okay, so this hardened hearts refer to when God hardens the heart of all kinds of people, like the Pharaoh, you know, and make him make bad decisions. But theologically speaking, depending on who you're asking, you know, he hardens hearts of people who are kind of already doomed to harden their hearts anyway. It's not like God is making them evil. They've made a choice to be evil, so then God made them double down on their decision for them. How does that work? I don't know. You can ask a theologian who will be able to answer your questions on why that makes sense. And fate. I call it fate because it's not destiny. It's not something you really choose or work towards, right? Fate is something that, like, it's fatal. Something determined, predetermined or deterministic. So we're gonna call that determinism. You know, it's set in stone, it's predetermined. Or determinism, paradoxically, it will be determinism, but it will also be freedom, free will, certainty. Not quite the word I'm trying to convey. I'm trying to convey the notion of you knowing for sure what you want and going for it. And determinism is more like you have no choice but to go along with the conditions. I'm gonna call it the left hand, because in the story he had concealed the dagger in his left hand and assassinated the king with it, which is probably partially where we get the, you know, the association of the left hand with deception, darkness, unsavory actions. Which is funny because in the religion I grew up with, the left hand is kind of associated with cleanliness, because we use our most people use their right hand because most people are kind of right-handed, and that's associated with corruption or uncleanness in certain contexts. I'm just designing an all-new card frame because I want a border. The way I previously designed it when I uploaded, the border disappears. I priestess. That's better. And just set of cards. Okay, and now I am adding my logo to the packaging. Thought about doing that from the front, but might be better if it's a bit more subtle. It's gonna be a bit subtle, but you know, if you're looking closely at a box, you should be able to see it.